there's a few areas I'd like to ring a bell on,
Sure.
and those are justice for vaccine injured families, uh, reduction of harm, and that would mean a revision of the vaccine schedule and all the other detoxifications of the environment that we
Yeah.
know are required. And then finally, healing and hope for our vaccine injured children. And
Yeah.
that would include the therapies that we
Right.
talked about, and also uh, residential and vocational opportunities
Yeah.
as these kids age out. So all
Yeah.
of those are items of interest.
Well, the justice issue is one that traditionally is handled through the justice system, right? The courts. I mean, that's one way that redress is given. And right now, we're bottled up in this vaccine court, quote unquote, where a good deal of the cover up and the delay and the denial is going on. And I think that the unanswered questions report that Mary Holland and Lou Conte and others did is so powerful because they were able to find like 180 some settlements in vaccine court, and just a very high number of those, 30, 40, were children who had autism. And how you are denied that that's a vaccine injury at the same time you're compensating those kids is just crazy. And of course, that was the hearing that was going to happen, the government reform hearing, and it's now postponed. But I think that almost literally, I hate to say it, but the bodies are buried in that vaccine court, and it's ironic because it's sort of the cause of this epidemic in that it um, you know uh, removed liability from pharmaceutical companies and led to this huge new wave of vaccinations. And yet now I think if we can get to the bottom of what's going on there, we're going to see that the real nature of what's happened. So that's justice in a kind of a technocratic way, bureaucratic. I think you probably have deeper deeper ideas in mind there, don't you? Too.
I think you're right. Vaccine court is number one. To me, justice entails the idea of empowerment. How do we empower parents? And I mean, you're already doing that. We're already doing that. But uh, it's the problem with vaccine court is power is taken away from parents.
Yeah.
It was taken away, and
Yeah.
and that needs to be restored. And
Right.
and the voices of parents need to be restored. When I think of our task in a kind of a seasonal theme, I think, well, okay, so the blind see, the deaf hear, the voiceless speak, and to me, that's that's what Age of Autism and our associates and readers are doing and
Right.
making happen.
Right. Well, a lot of our editors, contributors, commenters have gone out and done battle on all kinds of skeptic websites and have really tried to, and on the Katie Couric threads, and have really tried to say, listen, we're dealing with a situation where there's a lot of censorship, a lot of groupthink, and yet the truth is starting to break through, I think, more and more. I mean, Gardasil has helped because a lot of those injured victims are of an age where they can speak for themselves, and their parents can add their voices to what parents of the infants have seen with autism and other kinds of injuries. Um, so I just think that you put us on this year to a really good theme, which was this book From Dictatorship to Democracy, which talked about how when you are essentially powerless comparatively, and you're up against a structure that's very deeply implanted, what do you do? And one lesson I took from that book, and you no doubt took others, is that you have to try all kinds of things. I mean, the only thing that doesn't really work is sort of polite negotiation because, if you've got all the power and all the levers of authority, why negotiate? But, non-compliance is an important area, political action, protest, gathering, speaking out, the press, And so, it's not one thing. And so there's a lot of us trying a lot of different things, and I don't think we want to assume that one necessarily is better than the other. I think we have to be very open to the different approaches that we can all take.
When you see our movement in terms of the broader um, political and economic happenings that are going on, what about Age of Autism and our kids in context? Uh, what do you see going on in medicine and government that might be hopeful for next year?
Well, I'm not sure I really have a good answer to that question. The Canary Party is trying to, reach out in a direct political action way. I think that can hopefully make a difference. I think the hearings hopefully will happen. But beyond that, I think we're all just kind of scratching our heads on that theme and looking for whether, we need to be more unified in how we attack this, or whether, essentially we're going to reach a point where enough parents are concerned enough because of all the waves that we've raised, that they will essentially, almost create a different vaccination schedule out of default. They're just not going to go along with this. And so there's the political path, there's changing the structures at the top, and then there's sort of what happens at the pediatrician's office, every 2 months. And I think both of those are important, and we'll just have to see how that plays out.
I think that's so much a part of what Age of Autism is doing, and we're all doing, is what happens in the pediatrician's office and what happens on the playground. And, you know, the major media may be the last piece of the Berlin Wall to fall.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But underneath is all of this activity, new
Yeah,
awareness, and eyes are being opened, and
yeah,
ears are hearing.
I think so. And Mark Blaxell talks about, like, you lose every battle until the last one, which you win, and that was certainly the way with, in Vietnam. Unfortunately, it took a long time and a lot of tragic losses for that to occur. That finally, we realized that was just not a winnable or worthwhile thing. And I think that, the current vaccine schedule is not a winnable or worthwhile project for the war on disease that public health and pharma have decided to wage. I mean, total war is never a good idea. And I was looking the other day. I had a magazine that had a illustration of a cannon, and the trajectory of the bullet that was coming out of it. The shell was kind of turned right back at the cannon itself, and it said victory. So I mean, victory. And ultimately that kind of brute force that is being used doesn't really work. But I mean, we may see more mandates. We may see more. I just saw a story today where a woman at a health center was fired because she wouldn't get a flu shot, even though there's no evidence the flu shot works. There's plenty of evidence that it can be dangerous. So, in the short term, and the short term can last quite a while, it's a struggle.
Looking at the frontier of older adults aging out, um, what do you see there? What's happening and what's likely to happen?
Well, just, taking my cues from folks who are dealing with that, it seems to me that there really is no good official alternative at this point, and people seem to be looking at sort of small groups homes, and by small I mean 3 or 4 or 5 kids. Creating trust funds and other ways of trying to provide for what happens after parents are gone. I mean, that's always been the big question for any autism parent. From what I hear is, what happens after we're dead, to be blunt about it. And we've seen a lot of desperation this past year in terms of parents who don't see a future for their kids. And then, most horrible example was Alex Bertolakis, and the fact that his mother and caregiver tried to kill him, and then, well, they did kill him, and then tried to kill themselves, and it's obviously unacceptable and unforgivable thing to do. It does tell us that he was what, 14, so add another 6 years on there, and you get someone who has a child who's really about to age out of the education system at 22, and it's just a very difficult thing to figure out. What do you think?
I want to offer a word of hope to
Yeah,
parents on that topic because Ben is 26 and he's been aged out. He went over the cliff 5 years
yeah.
ago.
The bus stopped coming, as they
The
say,
bus
right?
stopped coming, and we've been dealing with that. And we had a ranch in Austin for adults with autism. We learned a lot. We're looking at opening a loose association of campuses for kids. But I think that parents are creative. I think that that the system can absorb these kids, or we can extend the system in such a way that uh, they can be absorbed, and we'll learn a lot in doing that. I have a lot of hope in that area, and uh, expect to be writing about it.
Great,
Uh,
great.
I think that Affordable Care Act has some unexplored provisions that may help fund
Hmm.
those enterprises. So to me, it's an exciting area, and I love working with these aged out youngsters, these aged out young adults. It's you have to open your heart to them, and when you do, uh, there's a wonderful world there of opportunities.
It would be, I mean, just to sort of think about a perfect world. In a perfect world, it seems to me you'd have a situation like an Agent Orange settlement
Yeah,
where,
yeah,
the truth of what's happened here, which is, essentially vaccine injury driving this autism epidemic, would cause Congress to enforce some huge payout,
yeah,
as well as treatment and prevention, all those things. But there's hundreds of thousands of injured children on the way to becoming adults and already adults. And with Agent Orange, after a lot of obfuscation and denial, they finally just said, okay, well, we're going to have to create a trust fund, and we're going to have to, compensate people and provide for ways for them to live a decent life with this chronic injury. And it's it can happen. I mean, but there's there's several steps in the meantime. That's why this congressional hearing is important, because in Congress, you can get laws passed and you can get action that at the state level, or in the media is fine, but the people who enact legislation and spend taxpayer money are the ones who really ultimately are going to have to, I think, be responsible and do the right thing.
yeah, yeah. And it's money, money, money. And
Yeah,
when that money is flowing, uh, the people who can use it are empowered. And
right.
I'm convinced that those people are out there now. I think if you were to look even into the NIH, the CDC, God help us,
Yeah,
you would find
yeah,
you would find isolated little islands of people who are writing grant proposals and trying
yeah,
to get trying to get funding. But you're right; it has to come from the national level.
yeah. We just had a couple of comments by someone who used the nickname Anonymous for now, and they said they were a health professional and they were very much involved in, you know, sharing with their colleagues in the health world exactly what was happening, and more were realizing it,
Yeah,
and
I saw it.
they needed to handle it this way for now. And then of course somebody came in and said, well, anonymous isn't good enough. You need to step
Yeah,
forward. And it's a complicated issue for various people in various situations. But you're right, they're there.
yeah, and we are there. Some of us are there as parents, ready to accept and work with kids who are aging out of the system too. So
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
that's great.
Now, you ready to sign off, or do you have something else?
Yeah, this feels like long enough for, I find if I go to see a YouTube item that's too long, I just don't watch it at all. So hopefully folks will check this out and we can keep talking. But hopefully the Dan and Dan show can continue in the new year. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year.
All right. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.